Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about what else you do to do a basic build. So everybody kind of abandon your build for a minute. I see all sorts of cool shapes over here now, but just kind of follow me over here to this, towards the center, and I just want to kind of demonstrate to you how to do something. All right, so over here what I'm going to do, I'm going to use this center part, so don't throw a bunch of prims on here. So what I'm going to do is I want to build a table. Right, that's like one of the. It's like when I was a kid. The first time I worked with clay, everybody made their parents an ashtray. Right. I mean, this is like the equivalent of making an ashtray because it's basic shapes. Right. So I'm putting on a cube, and I want to build a table. Right. So I'm going to make kind of a table that's maybe 2 meters by 4 meters. Right. Kind of long. This is an awfully thick table. Right. So I'm making it 2 meters by 4 meters by 0.1 meters, so fairly thin. Okay. I'm just going to leave this tabletop on the ground for now. Okay. Now, what else do I need for the table? Well, it's pretty simple. I just need some legs. Right? So, I'm going to close my edit window, and I'm going to go back to build. And one of them looks like a cylinder. Right? So I'm clicking on that instead. Same thing. I'm going to click on this cylinder over here. Right now, that's a really short, way too thick table leg. So instead, I'm going to make it maybe 0.1 by 0.1 by 1, something like that. Part of that leg just got buried in the ground, by the way, right? So that leg is really that long. You might be wondering, why is the table on the ground like that? Well, it's just so I can see where to put the legs. So what I'm doing is, as most of you already figured out, I notice, you see like there's when you were editing things, there were those funky arrows pointing out, right? Well, if you use your left mouse button and click on the end of an arrow, you can move the object. But again, be careful when you do that, because I've seen people throw these across the entire sim. So I'm just using this to roughly, you can do this much finer ways, to roughly put the cylinder where the edge of the table would be. Now, what I could do, I could close this, go up to build, do another cylinder, make it the same size, and then move it. But there's a cheat. Right? Instead, I'm just going to edit. I'm holding down my shift button, and then I grabbed the side of an arrow again and pulled. And it pulled out perfect copy. I'm going to do it again. All right, so again, I just went to one of the objects. I'm going to go to the same one. I clicked on it, so it's edited. I held down the shift button. And in my case, I'm pulling on the green arrow. Right? I grab the end of a green arrow. I still have my shift button held down. And I start to drag. Pulls out a perfect copy. Okay, I'm going to pull it over to this end. I'm going to do the same thing again. Closing my edit window. Edit what I want. Shift button, pull out a copy, and now I've got 4 table legs. Now, problem is right now they're not joined together. There's no glue, there's no nails or screws. What am I going to do? This is how you link something in Second Life. It's not difficult. One key to remember. The last thing you select, this will make sense in a second, is important. So I'm going to select one of the table legs. Doesn't matter which one. I selected one of the table legs. I'm holding down the control button, and then I just left click another table leg. What's happened now is I have, you won't see this, but 2 of my table legs are highlighted yellow. I'm going to keep the control button. I'm still holding it down. Clicking a 3rd one. Now I have 3 legs highlighted. Clicking a 4th one. 4 legs highlighted. And then I'm clicking the tabletop. It's highlighted. Now that means I've selected all of them. I let go of all my keys. So on my screen I have a bunch of yellow objects now. If you look back at the top of your screen under Build, one option is Link. That's what I want. I want to link my stuff now that they're all selected. So I could either go Build and choose Link, or I can just go Control L, which means Link. If I do that, what I have now, close the edit window, re-edit, ta-da, it's all one piece. So now if I rotate it, I'm going to have you guys practice this, even with just a couple items. If I rotate it now, get it so it's even, and pull it back to the ground. It's kind of a big table, isn't it? But, so there's a basic table, all linked together. Right, so that is, somebody tell me, who isn't an experienced builder, how many prims?
5.
5 prims. How many objects? That's right. 5 prims, 1 object, because it's linked. As soon as it's linked, as soon as you have one chunk of stuff linked together, it's considered an object. But it does have 5 prims. So when we looked at that little castle that we just looked at before, or the pyramid, I mean, that's all it is. You're taking basic shapes, thinking of creative ways to make them into sizes and rotations and locations, and linking as many together as you can, and you've created something, whether it's a house or a classroom or a chair or a sofa or a car. Even like some of you use those Stargates to go to some of the Machinivo stuff. Well, that Stargate, it's fancy textures, but it's just 2 cylinders. Outer cylinder that's the gate, and the inner cylinder that looks like water, and then it's just fancy textures. That's another workshop. Okay, who has questions?
I think one of your legs is too long. Can you edit one of your legs, please?
Do you mean in real life? I cannot edit real life legs.
I'd like to see you edit linked, please.
Okay, so here is the table, and actually I can see I didn't really get those legs attached to the actual table, did I? Okay, so let's say you do what I did and you just screwed up and your table's just floating there, right? This is a linked set now, right? So when I go to edit it, because Hazel brings up a really good point, what if you need to change something? It's all one piece. Uh-oh. Okay, here's one piece, but here's what I can do now, as Hazel was implying. On my build menu, when I go to edit, there is an option. It's right above the general tab. There's an option where you can choose edit linked. And then if you click on one piece of your object, it lets you edit just that one piece, right? So notice I'm only moving the tabletop now. Even though this is one piece now, I can edit linked, click on the piece I want, and just edit that piece. All right, so I see some questions here that came up. So to flip the table, you have to put in the numbers X, Y, Z. Can we drag the object to turn it? Maybe. So let me give some advice. Rotating objects. Trying to rotate, so if I want to, I can go to my edit window. Up near the top, there's a radio button, right? One of those round buttons, a radio button that says rotate. If I click on that, what happens over my table now is I get these like 3 funky circles. And what I could do is I could grab one of those circles. I'm doing that now. I'm grabbing a green circle, actually, and I'm just kind of rotating it, right? So I can rotate it manually that way. But the problem is, how do I know if it's really level, right? I think that's about level, but it's not, right? Because now if I look back at my edit window and I look at the 3 sets of numbers for rotation, it tells me it's 180, 5, and 180. So what I do a lot of times is I just kind of roughly get what I think is correct, and then I go and look and say, no, it's not correct. And then I change it. So I'm changing it 180, 0, 180, and now I know for sure it's level. If you only do it by eye, sometimes it gets a little bit messy.
Now, Randall,
go ahead.
When you have a lot of linked objects and you put a whole, like a big scene together, when you unlink, is there any way to unlink in an orderly fashion, or does just everything come unlinked?
Yeah, well, and that's a good point because you have to be a little bit careful, right? Sometimes you might be working on something and you're putting, ideally, right, when you're saving something, because if I'm happy with this table right now, I could right-click my table and say take a copy, right, and it'll save a copy of that into my inventory in the objects folder. It's always good to do, especially with your early build, so you can have your early stuff, right? Right-click, take a copy. So obviously, the more stuff you can link together, the easier it is to save and to take back out again. And the ultimate easy way later, right, is to use a holodeck, which is a later workshop. But you have to be careful of that, right? Was that Winchell? Is that who said that?
Right.
Yeah, because the thing is, what it's easy to make a mistake doing. You might have one object that has, I don't know, 30 or 40 prims. And sometimes people go, well, I need to unlink this to work on it. And they mean to only unlink one piece, but they accidentally unlink the whole thing. Now they've got 30 loose pieces again. So you just have to be cautious. And always save copies of your stuff as you work so that if you really screw up, you have version 8.1 to work on instead of 8.2 that you just messed up.
Now,
But
does
you can-
every group have a parent? Is it one parent in every group? not?
Any object always has a parent prim. The parent prim is, simply put, it's the last one that you selected it before you linked it. Now on this table, the reason that I selected the table top last is because that was logical to me, right? That would be the parent prim because it's the big flat one. Instead of like having a single leg as the parent prim, that just seems weird to me, right? So I tend to have the flattest, kind of biggest one possible as the parent prim, just because, I don't know, for me it's logical. Hold on, I just saw another question pop up. So number one, yes, you need to know the magic number. That's very good to know, right? I've learned so much about geometry building in Second Life. Can you put animations in any kind of prims? In theory, yes. And some of them wouldn't make sense, right? I could put a spinning animation in this table, but who wants a spinning table? It'd make you throw up if you're trying to eat. But what's a door? Well, a door in Second Life is just a flat prim on its side, and then there's an animation script in it so that when you click, it goes and opens up, or you click it again and it closes. Right? That's an animation script. And again, there's a later workshop where we're talking about scripts, and I know a number of us have lots and lots of scripts that you click to play a sound, scripts to change textures. There's all sorts of scripts that you can use for various things. I can't quite tell if James is pointing to the sky, or if he has a question, or if he's just stuck. It looks like he has a question.
Who, me?
Yes,
Your
you got your
hand
arm
pointed
up.
to the sky.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Okay,
Well,
I mean, you're just
You must
airing
be
out. I
excused.
understand.
I must be, yeah.
Other questions?
Empty room and talks. Computer.
One thing I can tell you, though, absolutely, is you have to just
He was
practice.
a vegetarian.
Even
Oh,
from
I
this
don't know
little
if that's
workshop, and I will be. Could somebody turn their microphone off? It might be James. I'm picking up some other voices there.
Oh, sorry, yep.
I'm going to leave out that simple, the building workshop slides, because everything I just talked about is in those slides, actually. And as I mentioned, from these basic building blocks, most of the things that I build in Second Life, that's it. It's those simple blocks and what you do with them. And as I said, look at some of the stuff in the holodeck, res some scenes, and then do what I did. Right-click something and go to edit, and it kind of shows you what the individual pieces are, right, by how they're outlined. Right, and you can see, okay, so how did they do that? All right, this is a big flat one, and here's a cylinder. That's the way I figured out a lot of the tricks to building stuff, is finding stuff I liked and looking to see how people did it. Other questions so far? Lag affects you. I feel that. How do you link the objects again? Okay, let me do this once more. And I want to have you practice this, right? And if people get lost, I can help, Carol can help, maybe there's some other people as well. So let's pretend again that my table was not linked. Right? In fact, I'm going to unlink it. I'm going to go to the build and say unlink. So right now, this table again is 5 pieces. There they are, 5 pieces. So how do I link them? I'm going to put the top down at the base again, just so it's easier to see. So all I did to link, you have to own everything to link it, by the way. I can't link something I own to something that James owns, for example. That would be chaos. Right? So I'm going to one of the objects, and I'm going to edit it. Right-click, edit it. I'm going to hold down my control button. What will happen is, what you'll notice is all of a sudden you'll get these circles instead of the regular pointer, but don't worry about that. I'm going to click on a second object, a second prim, a third prim. I'm still holding down control. A fourth prim. I'm clicking on the tabletop. Now they're all highlighted for me. I'm letting loose of all the keys. I'm not touching. Now I'm just going to hit Control L, which means link. Or again, I can go back to the build menu on the top of the screen. And once again, they're linked. Oh, hold on. I'm about to cough again. Whoa. Excuse me. Didn't get my microphone off in time. Okay. Woo. What else do we have? What about the ground? Can it be edited the same way? Yeah, great question from I can hardly talk. Fabrizio. If you own an island like Edunation, the land is editable, right? You can terraform, they call it, right? So everything you see on Edunation, the hills, the volcanoes, on the other, that's just changes in the land elevation that we did by terraforming. And then the sand, the rock, you know, that's basically just different textures. So, yeah, same thing. That's all. But again, you have to own land to be able to edit it that way. And it's really easy to screw it up big time. It's kind of entertaining sometimes. You can dig a 50-foot pit by accident. Not that we've ever done that. Yeah.
The land, can you res it? Wow.
Yeah.
Not.
If you get land, can you just
Res.
it? Freeze it. Yeah. Well,
Oh,
as the owner of land, only the owners or somebody you say can do it can terraform the land. You own a piece of land and found a piece of land and downloaded it. That's interesting.
That's OpenSim, I guess. Was that
could be.
OpenSim?
Or it could be a Sims around.
Terrain map. I bet you that's exactly what it was. Yeah, because if you look online actually and you Google Second Life free terrain maps, yeah, basically what
Some
that
lovely
is a very fancy type of texture, which is taking that 3D modeling for an island into account. Yeah, so you can do that actually. If somebody owns an island in Second Life, you can find those kind of already made terrain maps and say, all right, I just want to upload this. The whole island changes to whatever you want, basically. Okay, nice to see you, Sue. Okay, so again, you know, it's 55 after. I'm happy to answer more questions, but also, you know, try this out a little bit more. You know, try to split your object. For example, remember if you edit your object, hold down Shift and pull on an arrow. Suddenly, I have 2 tables. Okay, so try to at least make 2 objects, 2 prims, I should say, and link them together before you're finished here, right? So you can really see how to link stuff. Because if you can link 2 objects, you know, with a little more work, you can link 20 objects. You know, you can make a sofa, you can make a table, you can make a house. It just takes patience. Okay. That's right. It's a very nice little table.
And you can fill up the sim very quickly if you've got
That's right. Yeah,
thousands
but
of objects.
that's right. Always try to remember to clean up after yourself, though, because it's very easy to lose these, and sometimes we'll be walking around and it's like, why are there 20 cubes over on the edge of the sim? It's because somebody kept creating a cube and trying to move it. They went, where did it go? Well, I'll do another one. Where did it go? So I came one time and found probably 150 prims that somebody had accidentally left someplace. Where is Osna?
We have put
Osna's very good at that.
Oh, what a shame he's not here.
He's travelling, yes. It is a shame, isn't it?
Yeah.
He
His
was hoping
prim's
to
trapped.
Yes.
Yes.
He was hoping to get back in time.
Yeah.
But he was on route from Barcelona to Germany, so.
Oh.
Yeah.
What a
he
jet
obviously-
setter.
Yeah, he certainly is.
We didn't lengthen my leg.
That's really getting on her nerves.
We can link
It's
your
really
leg.
bugging you, huh?
Here you go. I'm going to lengthen a leg for you. I'm going to click on Edit Linked. I'm clicking a leg, and just for you, because I know this is important. So here's your 64-meter leg.
Wow, that's useful.
That's a leg.
First.
Yeah, excellent.
That's good if you want your table on top of a swamp.
So that was edit linked. Edit.
Yes,
Yeah.
Edit Linked. Right. So again, I click and edit the whole object. I click the box that says Edit Linked, and then I click whichever single piece I want to edit, and then I can just edit that one without unlinking everything, which I know is why you mentioned that. Because if you had to unlink everything every time you realize, oops, this one piece is not quite right, oof, what a pain that would be. Right. So this lets you get across away from that issue.
And also, when it comes to texturing, you always editing linked, aren't you? You're not
Edit
part
link,
of it.
or select face.
Yeah.
Also.
Yeah, but that's
Yeah,
next week.
which we'll certainly talk about in the
fortnight.
texturing workshop, because that's absolutely very critical for that, certainly. Other questions? Like I said, I'm happy to stick around and help more too.
I think
can I
everyone
ask a
should
question?
make a
Oh.
table. Sorry.
Yeah,
I was going to ask a question. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Very good. And first of all, this is fantastic. Thank you very much. I mean, I know I'm 7 years old, but I've never always really understood all of this. But I've got it now, I think. But one thing is about, I tend to do things by eye, and it's not very
Yep.
good. So if you were to look at the little table I'm so proud of here, actually, there are two of the legs which are sticking out of the
Yeah.
flat bit, and I was just fiddling around with the rotation, but I didn't quite get it. Are
Yeah.
there any sort of, I think someone said magic numbers that you think,
Yes.
well, actually,
I'll tell
that
you one
what have
thing.
you?
Yeah, one thing that I do if I'm building something and I know it's going to be complicated. So take a look at my table again. One thing that I do, because I tend to go by the position numbers, but right now my table is positioned at 98.596 meters by 163.199 meters. How annoying. So what I do is I tend to try and move the core piece as I start to an even number. So I'm going to move this to 100 by, let's just say 164 by 23, right? So instead of having to worry about all those little point numbers, I've got something basic. So that's one thing you can do. Another thing you can do is there's a trick where if you look at an object, now I'm going to edit my table leg, right? So I'm going to just unlink this whole thing, right? Just to make this simpler. Pretend we're in the early days here, right? So I've unlinked it. I said you can edit a leg, and then remember I said you could pull on the ends of these arrows, right? There's another thing though. If you kind of look, you'll see there's the arrows, and then there are these little triangle shapes also. You've probably noticed those in objects before. If instead of pulling on an arrow, I pull on the triangle shape, what it does is, notice how my object is moving, this table leg. Boop. It moves in leaps. You see how it's doing that? It's not smooth anymore. It's like, boop, half meter, half meter, half meter. So this allows you
We
to...
don't see it. We don't
Do you see it moving?
No,
Oh, you don't
We
see it
don't
moving at all.
not when you're
Ah.
editing, no.
Okay,
No,
hold
no.
on. Movement,
Aha, we see it now.
movement,
Mhm.
movement. Instead of moving tiny by tiny, that's moving it automatically a half meter at a time. It's because this is called grid movement. So instead of pulling the ends of the arrows again, I'm pulling on, there's these little triangle shapes. And you can actually change the size of this grid, by the way. By default, the size of the grid is a half meter by a half meter. You can change this. Carol, do you remember where to change that? Is that under build options?
God, I don't know. I don't know that one.
Hold on. It's yes, under build and options, there's
Option.
something called grid options.
Yeah.
Right now, by default, it's a half meter. I could change that to a 1/10 meter if I want to really fine tune it. The advantage of that is, because I think this kind of gets to the point that you were making, Corelia, I can just move stuff by hand, but now watch. Movement, movement, movement. See,
Yeah.
it's making tiny skips,
Tiny.
right? And then I'm going to do the same thing this way. Movement. Okay, so that's not bad all of a sudden. I can do the same thing with this other leg. Movement. And maybe movement in, right? So it's giving me small, measured, bit-by-bit movements that snap to a grid. Right? So it allows you to get a lot closer to what you want. If I'm building something like a house, where I'm putting big pieces together, that's where I think geometry comes into play, because I actually do start to calculate by position. Right, this is 10 meters, and this piece, and it's positioned at 100, so the next one should be positioned at 110, or 120, or 130. Again, based on sizes and relative positions. But the snapping to the grid is really a handy tool for stuff like tables and furniture and that sort of thing. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other
That's very
questions,
interesting.
or
I
does
didn't
anybody
know
need
that.
help?
Snap to
Anybody's
grid.
stuck? I see some people making tables and other things.
Brilliant. Name it in general, name it, call it a table, because when we do texturing,
Yep.
you want something to put textures on.
Yeah, very
so
handy.
go to
And
the
I'll-
general tab.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And I'll give you a couple. I'll give you a blank thing that you could also work on texturing too. But if you have your own thing, that's kind of cool to be able to have it. And again, don't forget that this building little tutorial, the one on the slideshow over here on the side, I'm going to leave that there, so you can just kind of click through that, and it takes you from res a basic object, change the size, change the rotation, link together. That information is all there. There's some great tutorials on YouTube, by the way, as well. So just go to YouTube and check for that too. But again, let's see.
Is it possible to give us any particular links? Because I was just thinking, it is tomorrow after school that I'm going to do this with some kids. So if you've got any particular ones, I mean, I think I can imitate what you've done today. That'd be good. But if you've got any particular ones,
it's been a while since I looked at them, to be honest.
they're no problem. I know. it doesn't
Yeah, there
matter.
used to be some
I've-
very good ones out there by what was the name of the guy? The education specialist they used to have for Second Life.
Lester, John Lester. Is it John Lester?
No, thinking the Second Life name. The guy one of the Lindens.
Pathfinder.
Yeah,
Pathfinder.
Morley or
Yeah.
This is where we need our tags, isn't we?
Yeah,
Yeah, tags.
yeah, our tags and licensing. Sorry, a lot of people weren't here earlier. We did a bit about tags.
Other questions or comments? Would you suggest spending time learning 3D software, Blender, etc., or rather practice on Prims or both? I mean, I'm excuse me. One second.
Poor Randall.
Yeah, I
Really
actually
poorly.
feel a lot better than yesterday, but I'm still
That's good.
cleaning out the system.
Oh,
Blender is actually, or some of the other 3D modeling programs, it's something I'm interested in learning more about myself. I would
And
say
me.
that Hazel is much more familiar with those than I am. But it all depends on what you want to make and what you want to build. If you're interested in very, very complicated shapes, things like a palm tree or custom set of clothing, that's where the real 3D modeling can be very handy. Keep in mind, though, that there's so many things you can get even for free in Second Life. In terms of even to a certain extent with 3D shapes, or they're very cheap. Stuff in Second Life is cheap. Sometimes you see something and it'll be like, whoa, 300 lindens. But then you realize that, 1,000 lindens is about $4. So stuff doesn't tend to be that expensive here. Hazel, you were going to say something?
Well, there's very little point in reinventing the wheel, and if
Yeah.
all you're doing is remaking stuff that's already been made and cheap or free in the marketplace, there isn't any point. And another point about Mesh and Blender and all those things is that you have to have a premium account, which is going to cost
that's
you.
true.
And you
Yeah.
have to have, somewhere to res it and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's time
And you have
money.
to pay to upload. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to pay to upload.
Yeah. But everything that I've built in Second Life, a lot of it's regular prims. Some of it, though, there are things that I've found or bought that I tend to reuse for furniture and such, where I had to buy it once, but then I've reused it 5, 6, 7, 8 times, and it was cheap. So yeah, at this point, it just hasn't been important enough for me to spend the amount of time I'd need to learn it. But many of you were up at the chateau. That didn't require any super special building skills. Because again, the things that are there, like sculpture and such, we found for free or we bought. Somebody was going to ask something. I heard a question
Me,
starting up.
I was going to say, if you've bought something, can you edit it just as if something created yourself?
It depends, right? Everything in Second Life has a certain set of permissions set on it. So if you build something, it's always full permission to you. But if you buy something, it might be full permission, and Second Life Marketplace would normally tell you, although it's not always entirely accurate. If it's full permission, it means you can modify it, you can give it away, and you can copy it, right? So if you buy a table and it's full permission, you could put out 1,000 copies, you could change the shape and size and everything, and you could give copies of it away. As you might imagine, some of the really cool stuff, people don't want you to do that because they want other people to buy it. So sometimes stuff is yes copy, yes modify, no ability to give it away. Right? Sometimes stuff is no copy, no modify, no transfer, which means no permissions. That's not really good stuff. I don't like when people do that. At least it should be modifiable, but sometimes it's not. So you always have to check the permissions, because if I'm buying stuff to use in a holodeck, for example, because of the way a holodeck works, it has to be at least copyable and at least modifiable. It doesn't have to be transferable, but it has to be those first two, or I can't use it in a holodeck.
Abu has a problem.
Abu has a crooked
Won't
leg,
let
he
you
says.
link- Whoops, excuse me. It won't let you link them. Now, here's the first question. Are all of these actually owned by you? Let's
No.
check.
One isn't.
One of them might be owned by somebody else. I see this leg is yours. Leg is yours.
The stolen leg.
Leg is yours. Leg is yours. And the top is yours. Those are all owned by you. So let's see if
It's
you're doing
got
it right.
something else linked. Probably one of your squares. One of your edges, I bet, is linked.
You think? I'm not sure. So, Abu, do this. Close your edit window. Just close the edit window entirely. Okay, good. Now, right-click one of the table legs. Right-click one leg, just a leg. One leg. I need some friggin' mouse issues. Okay. Right-click the leg and choose Edit. Okay. Right-click a leg and tell me when you're good to edit. Okay, now hold down your Control key. Click a second leg. Again, as soon as you click it, it should turn yellow as well. Then click a third leg. Then click the fourth leg. All the time you're holding down your Control key. And then finally, click the tabletop. Right? So when you're done, you should have 5 things highlighted. There's a, oh yeah, the globe-like shape, right? Unfortunately, that's one of the things that happens. You have to get a little creative sometimes with where your camera is, or just walk onto your table. That does get in the way, though, sometimes. If you click a far-away leg, it'll shift that out of the way, by the way, also. It says, what you may have done, I think this is what Carol was saying, sometimes people start to link stuff and they accidentally, like, click the grass. And if you do that, you're trying to select the grass also, right? You can't tell necessarily because this is a big chunk of grass. But that's probably what happened. You probably clicked something other than the table leg by accident. And actually, I can simplify this. I'm going to clear out this scene.
End simulation.
Now you can't accidentally click the grass. Only your stuff.
That's a good one.
How do you delete something if you just want to clear it and start again?
Yeah, if you want to just get rid of something, if you are in edit mode, if you're editing the object already, if you have a regular keyboard, you can just hit the delete button on your keyboard, or you can just right-click your object and select delete from the menu that clicks up.
I see.
Yeah, Abu, the globe will always pop up. It's part of what happens. But do this. This will make it easier. Before you start selecting stuff, all right, close your edit window again. And let's zoom in your camera. Hold down the Alt button on your keyboard. You notice how now you'll get a little magnifying glass instead of the arrow? Click on the center of your table and